So where I see successful innovation and transformation happening is around being super clear on the purpose. One question I ask leaders often when I'm sitting with them is, what assumptions are you making here? What are you not allowing yourself to see in terms of the organization and and what you're trying to do?
Welcome to KPI Fireside. Our mission is simple: to improve companies and to improve careers through continuous improvement. In every episode, we explore the spark, the moment, the mindset, or the method that ignites real change. Whether you're just starting out or leveling up, you'll find the insights and inspiration to fuel your next improvement. Welcome back to KPI Fireside, a continuous improvement podcast. I am your host, Keith Norris. Our guest today is Claire Quigley. Claire is the founder and director of Tech Team Whisperer, where she helps leaders deliver transformation that actually sticks by aligning teams, vision, and technology in a human-first way that saves cost and delivers results. With over 20 years at the intersection of strategy, innovation, and people across startups and global corporates from Ireland to Australia, she knows most transformations fail because organizations skip getting truly transformation ready. Claire is a chair of Hunter IF and an accomplished equestrian who runs a horse agistment farm with her husband in Upper Hunter Valley, New South Wales. Claire, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you for having me.
It's so awesome to have you here on the podcast. And I know you're in Australia, but I hear a little bit of an Irish accent there. So explain that combination.
Of course. Yes. Yes. So I'm originally from Kilkenny in Ireland, and I moved to Australia 15 years ago. And it is now my home. So I'm, one of those people who, is never truly at home unless they're halfway in the sky, in the plane. That's when you feel most at home, I think. Yes, so I've made my life here I'm a country girl, come from countryside in Kilkenny, and I'm living in country and rural regional New South Wales as well, which makes it interesting when working with clients at times with travel. But yeah, it's all worth it.
Well, I know for certain that we have some prior guests and some fans of this podcast who are also horse people. So I read this word in your bio that, to be honest, I do not know what it means. What is a horse agistment farm?
And it's called livery as well, and in Northern Hemisphere more so. But yeah, so essentially we horse adjustment is where, it depends. Like, it can be individuals who have their own horses and they need somewhere to put that horse and ride that horse, and there's a field of grass, and but essentially you're renting a paddock and facilities. And then we also have what's known as spelling. So that's for businesses. So we're in the horse capital of Australia here in Scone, and we have the largest concentration of thoroughbreds outside of Kentucky, which is pretty cool. But as part of that as well, we have, we've only small acreage. We're not like any of the big players here, but we offer spelling, which is essentially for, young race horses and older race horses to take a rest, have a little holiday. And we offer that service as well. So hopefully
Well,
I've
that's a
explained
great
that.
connection.
Yes. Thank
I
you.
have talked to at least a couple of people recently who have woven horses and lessons with horses into leadership lessons. So I found that quite interesting. I have to connect
Yes.
you with them.
Yes. You've got to commit. That's one thing I would say. You've got to commit. There's no backing out of the last ride, for sure.
I'll give a little shout out to Ted Iverson. We did an episode with him, and might be worth. If you like horses, check out Ted's episode as well.
I will, for sure.
Okay, so we like to talk to people about continuous improvement as this broad category. And for you, continuous improvement means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Tell us what it means for you.
Good question. For me, it's about, I guess, for me, continuous improvement is about, it's a multiplicity of mindset. It's about how you think about things. So my work is in innovation. It's in strategy. It's helping with transformation. And when you look at continuous improvement, it's about taking that, that whole of system view on what's actually happening here. And where are we, maybe not performing as well as we'd like to be, and what would the impact be of improving that or changing that? So continuous improvement to me ultimately is about asking a question from that through that lens initially, and then what are the tools and what is the language that we can use to bring people together to start to unpack, okay, well, where are our opportunities or our gaps here?
Interesting. I love, yeah, you've kind of helped build some context there about how these things fit together and some of the, because some folks learn, like, let's say lean, for example, and realizing that some of these other terms build on a lot of that prior knowledge, or you can use those tools to solve problems that seem new, like AI.
Yeah. Yes, right. And and it's going to be something else. And I had a conversation with somebody yesterday, fabulous lady, and she's CEO, and she just said, like, Claire, I just feel like every morning I wake up, there's some new AI tool. Is it even worth, am I behind the eight ball before I even start because there's constantly something new coming out? And it's like, no, it's about how we frame up how you approach and utilize the AI. Whatever that AI tool is, it will evolve and change, but it's how you're approaching it and how you're leading your people to approach it as well. So, for instance, like research is showing us a lot of people are, I think it's something like 60% of people are anxious now about technology and AI coming into their organization because they're just, being thrown into a funnel almost at times. And the training is a little bit generic. So where you can be really strong as a leader is actually going, okay, well, how can we train our people to approach the use of AI or technology in such a way that it helps them on their personal role, as a team, as an organization? So those are the types of ways of thinking and acting that as leaders, I believe are going to be far more valuable, and bringing that human into the loop, right? That's human first. That's what continuous improvement is and lean is. It's the human-led perspective. So that's where, again, this person was like, oh yes, okay. And it takes away that overwhelm that often can come into the conversation because you're going, hang on, I've just got my head around Gen AI. Now we've got agentic AI. What does that mean? How does that work? Okay. And it's not your role as a leader to know the detail around that, which is why you make friends with the tech teams and they help you understand what that looks like.
This is so interesting. I think that there's a lot that we can unpack here for people involved in change management, also leaders and
Mm.
managers, because of course, AI is like everything that everybody's talking about. And there's a lot that, we all need to learn and will learn about it. But some of these things are maybe extensions of existing things that we've had to get familiar with. Digital transformation, for example. Digital transformation's been around for a few years now. I don't recall exactly when it became like the buzzword, but it's definitely had its like increase. I know you work a lot in digital transformation. Explain what digital transformation meant, what it means now, and where you see it going with, this AI age happening.
Yes, and I guess what I would start with there is, it's such a subjective term, depending on the maturity of the organization, depending on the industry in which the organization is in. But ultimately, you're looking for ways to automate the work you're doing in many cases, right? And you're looking for ways to do things better. And then using AI. And this is actually quite an interesting tension that I often see in organizations should AI be the lead here in terms of what we're trying to do, or do we actually just need to automate it? Or do we even, and which is where CI comes in, is do we even need this process in the first instance? Particularly where I see digital transformation challenges happening is those handover points between different functions. As much as we talk about collaboration and all those beautiful things, there's still quite a siloed mentality, and particularly in service organizations for some interesting reason I see quite a bit. So digital transformation is, finding a better way to deliver the value through digital technologies, right? And AI, you could argue, is simply just one of those tools that's, catapulting us on a hockey stick at the moment.
So Claire, I'm super interested to get into this idea of how companies innovate and how they transform. And if we look at everything that a company does as like the current stuff that they do versus like this new stuff, I know that a lot of companies struggle with how to get innovation done. And there's probably multiple right
Mm.
answers to this, but sometimes they'll like make special departments or special functions. Sometimes they'll just ask people to do everything that you've been doing and innovate in some new ways. What works and what doesn't work in terms of structuring the innovation?
It all comes back to the leadership style. first and foremost. So in terms of structuring innovation, in terms of structuring transformation, all these beautiful terms are wrapped up, but it comes back first and foremost to the type of leader, the leadership that's sitting at the helm. How much control do they want? Or it's that pendulum swing, right? And you need to find that nice balance between, yes, I want, there's accountability that I'm holding this team accountable to, but I also need to give them rein to go and experiment and try and fail. Failure's still the number one, I guess, resistance point for a lot of organizations. It's like, hang on, I've given you money. You've spent 6 months doing this. Now you're telling me you want more money and it's not worth what you tried. What the hell, right? It's still so many times I still sit in rooms, and even though we say, no, it's okay to fail fast, experiment, etc., the mindset of the leadership is still not at that point in many cases that it's happy to, so how do we ring fence some projects? So where I see successful innovation and transformation happening is around being super clear on the purpose. Like, so what is the story here? What is actually anchoring us back into why we're doing this? So that it's like, okay, why are we investing this? What would happen if we were to get this right? What could this cost us? Just baseline, and the big thing around this is time. For some reason, we can still catch ourselves in that whole, okay, we're in, financial year. So in Australia, we go like June, let's say 1st of July to 30th of June, right? That's our financial year. And people still think in quarters and in annual financial return thinking, rather than going, hang on, this is actually a 5 to 10 year play. How are we setting ourselves up for that? And, and you have of course, your business as usual. You have your different types of innovation. There's the shorter term or longer term thinking, but that's a big hurdle that if people go, you know what, to go on this journey, it's going to take us a minimum of 5 years. This is what we need to set up in terms of resourcing, putting your A team on it. One of the things as well that when I work with leaders, it's like, we need to have really, really good people on this. We can't go, no, I need those people doing the amazing work they're doing already in the business, right? It's like, yes, we need them. They're the A players. We need the A players in here because we know they're going to do the right thing. They're going to find the falls fast. They're going to move faster on this. Whereas if you bring in, still very good people, but, maybe they're your B players, you're not going to get the same impact. So you've really got to commit, like we talked at the start about the horses, right? You're going into a jump, you don't back off, and if you're going, you're going, and that's it. If you start backing off, you're in a whole world of pain. I'll tell you that much. So that's, I guess, where I would really advise people to think, it's like, all right, what is required of me to go on this journey, and of my people and of the organization? Why do we want to do this? And also, one question I ask leaders often when I'm sitting with them is, what assumptions are you making here? What are you not allowing yourself to see in terms of the organization and what you're trying to do?
So you've used the term transformation ready, and it sounds like that's what you're getting at. But how would you define that transformation ready, or what are the questions that you might ask to decide if someone is transformation ready?
Yes. So my opinion is transformation is 80% awareness. Once you're aware of where you're playing, where you're going, and so on, ultimately, when we go and we create our plans, and we're very excited about where we're taking the organization, and you're very committed and smart people in the room working together, devising the plan. And you've got that standard cycle of, plan, prepare, execute, and review, right? Those typically your 4 steps. More often than not, when leaders get into the planning stage, they forget that I've sat in a room with consultants, or I've sat in the room with my other peers, and we've designed this great work. And I've done this for 6 months. I'm living it every day. I walk out of the room and I'm like, right, we're doing this. I've explained it to my people. What they do is go straight into execute mode. They're like, okay, I want you to do this, this, and this in order to achieve the plan or the strategy. So where I step in, Keith, is in that gap in the readiness or the preparation space to go, okay, what's it going to take to go on this journey? One really, really interesting research piece that I came across, I think it was Harvard. I'll give Harvard the kudos. I think it was Harvard, HBR, was, in the last 10 years, success. So 10 years ago, success rate of transformations was 12%, right? For now, and the failure rate was, I think, something around 26, 27%. So then everything in between was mediocre. So it's kind of like, oh, we just got it done eventually. 10 years later, what do you think the success rate of transformation is?
Probably not better.
Yes, it's still 12%. What's interesting is the failure rate has decreased in terms of pure failure, but what's happened is we've just fattened up in the middle in the mediocre. So we've just accepted mediocre as leaders. We've accepted mediocre as the result, despite the millions and millions and millions of dollars that we spend on the tech and on the people and on the consultants and all the different elements of transformation. We're still spending millions on mediocre. So that's where I believe transformation readiness is so powerful because it gets leaders to ask that question before they go on the journey, right?
This episode is brought to you by KPI Fire, the all-in-one platform for continuous improvement. With KPI Fire, you can align strategy, drive execution, and engage your people. So whether you're leading a team or driving enterprise-wide change, KPI Fire helps you deliver real results. Learn more at www.kpifire.com. You mentioned the statistic a minute ago about like how many of these transformation initiatives fail, and I'm kind of curious to get at the definition of, or let's say the measure of success versus failure. I would imagine with your work, you probably could help somebody set themselves up to be more successful than to fail. How might you help coach somebody to what the goal of their digital transformation or AI initiative should be?
Yeah, it's so, again, back to what's the purpose and leading from that and then having your OKRs in place. But you're right. Um, there's a lot of dashboards looking at the data rather than the facts, if that makes sense. So there's another, well, actually, she's not CEO, CIO. One of those executive, I was talking to her couple of weeks ago, and they were about to roll out a new application. She'd worked with she'd given the brief to the tech team, and they were getting their updates, their roadmap updates every week, right? And those green, 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 and then they realized that they're 90% at the about to go into release, and the exec said, "Oh, I'd love to see what this is now looking like." She went in and she was like, "They just took the brief and they totally put Frankenstein over it, and they went off and created something completely different." But the dashboard was telling them we had done all the things, we had ticked all the boxes, right? We've done our QA, we've done everything, we've done our UX, but the UX was around a product that was not actually needed. So what I do is I go, okay, well, what are the measurements? So I talk about this concept of, when you're traveling with your beautiful wife, partner, kids, all that, right? And if you're driving, and you're looking at the data, you're looking at it at a very different perspective, right? Because you're like, okay, is there a storm coming? Do I need to be getting off the highway here? You're looking for the signals, right? Whereas when you're a passenger, I don't know about you, but I'm just sitting there on Spotify, or I'm,
Yeah.
just checking every so often. Oh yeah, everything looks cool. It's all good. There's a bit of traffic ahead. Whatever, we're still going. And I'm passive. I'm passive in it. And that's where um, we need to be more active and accountable in not just the measurement, but in what we're measuring. And this is where Gemba, that kind of mentality of like, get on the floor. Are people showing up to the meetings? That's a big indicator early if people start dropping out of things. What you're looking for are the signals. What you're looking for are people actually buying into this? Are they ticking the boxes, saying the right things when management is in the room? As soon as management go, it's like, yeah, guys, we don't have time for that. We're going back here. So that's where I work with them to design how will you know this is successful? What will you feel? What will you see? What will you hear? What will, the bottom line look like as a result of that as well? Of course, there's a hard metrics, but you must look at the bigger element. So I guess I stretch out the viewpoint for the leadership to go, are we in the driver's seat or are we in the passenger seat here? And
Yeah.
B, what are the signals that will show us this is on track or not? Not the metrics, not the dashboards with all the green lights. What are the stuff when I walk the floor, I'll know this is working or not.
You just touched on something that I thought was really interesting, so I want to drill down on this a bit.
Yeah.
When it comes to delivering business value from a balanced scorecard perspective, you could say,
Mm.
well, like financial performance is at the top of the stack. And then there's all the things that need to happen. Are we delivering what the customer wants, or do we have good processes? And at the people end of a balanced scorecard lives things like engagement and skills. And you just touched on something that, like, let's say you're the project leader and you call a meeting and half the people don't show up. Like, maybe they've got the flu. But you, as an experienced person, I think you just touched on something where, like, if let's just say you're a consultant, you get called in and you're helping run this thing, and all of a sudden you call this meeting and half the people don't show up. Like, that might be a trigger for you to be like, I wonder if we have a problem here. Like, it might not just be that everybody's sick. I think that's something that you probably wouldn't be taught in a project management course. But
Mm.
like, are people disengaged with your project invitations is a very interesting insight that you probably wouldn't learn on your first project.
No, you probably wouldn't. Yes, and it's also when you're in the meeting, what's the discussion? Are people just following an agenda? Is there one or two rogues in there that are taking stuff off track? There's all those types of softer elements, but I find that time and time again, are people showing up? And if they're showing up, are they leaning in? Or are they like, my boss told me I needed to be here, so I'm here, but I'm actually working on ordering
Is
my grocery order for and also just to add to that as well, how connected are people after or between those meetings? So because of course you work across functions, are the tech guys working well with the customer service guys? Do they see each other between our meetings or no? We should be finding ways to get some form of connection in between those sessions too. So people start, it's genuine connection and sharing and learning from each other.
now, Claire, you've done a lot of work specifically with technology teams.
Mhm.
And again, we all have like our history and our perspective of the world and the way we see things. And I've seen people in hard disciplines, manufacturing, mining, where they're not building software. They don't have agile, right? Like, if you want to move the line, the production facility, like, it's a real project that usually needs to be done. There tends to be like different approaches to problem solving, structured problem solving. I'm curious how much crossover you see in your work between like digital teams that tend to really just believe, like, agile's everything, versus maybe more like traditional physical type process world where they're using a different methodology, a DMAIC or a PDCA.
Mm,
How do you see things from where from your work?
and I'm really lucky, right? Because I can dance with both and kind of bring the crossover, so I can, I guess, transfer, experiences, crossover. I think there's like, I actually love, if I'm honest, the hard visual, the PDCAs and the DMAICs, because and it could be just pieces of paper stuck to the whiteboard, right? And say, yeah, we're green, green, green. There's an amber here, whatever, or red, depending on where. But and there's something that I think is so powerful about that, especially we're going through so much fatigue with technology at the moment, I think, and people are actually craving, it's like books. I don't know if you're a person that like, you're happy reading on your Kindle, or you're like, no, I love the feel of paper, right? I need to smell the book. I need a good book that I can, leaf through. With digital teams, if I'm honest, I think there is sometimes a risk that you disconnect from the reality, because everything's digital, everything is, code, everything is, you've got your milestones, and you're moving through those milestones, and at the end of the day, we're not performing brain surgery here, right? Let's be honest, but it's important work at the same time. I think there's actually so much more merit in bringing in those visual tools more into the digital work. So it gives you a story that everyone can connect with, because I find that digital can sometimes actually create disconnection, because people either don't understand it, or they get overwhelmed by it, or it's there's no story, there's no connection. Whereas when you've got a visual representation literally in front of you that you're talking to, it creates new questions, it creates new ways of seeing things, it creates, we're either doing this or we're not. There's no fluffing it. It's like I was saying earlier on about that dashboard. According to this exec, they were on track, they were 90% there. All of a sudden they were back to 50%, and everyone's cracking it. And that's where the gap is potentially in the digital space, is there's disconnect with what this really means, and inviting people into the tent with that diverse perspective I talked earlier on to go, hey, I know I'm not, an software engineer, but I'm looking at this and I just want to ask a question. And I now have a language to ask that question rather than going, there's something about this that doesn't feel right, but I don't know what it is or how to articulate it. And that's probably where I think the physical, traditional proven, right? Is proven model can really actually add so much more value because as well it stops what I often bang on about what I call the cargo cult mentality. Have you heard that about the cargo cult
No, what is
mentality?
that?
So it's just so it's essentially it's I guess a phenomenon in World War II. It was really interesting. So in the Pacific Islands, there was obviously, there was American soldiers, there was all these different soldiers in the Pacific Islands, and they had the cargo planes. So the Pacific Islanders would see, every time these soldiers would go, these men, yeah, I assume it was mainly men at that time, in their soldier gear going out, and they're waving the fire, and creating essentially it was a landing strip, right? The cargo plane would come and it would give gifts of food and medicine and all of these things. So they're like, oh wow, this is amazing, right? So they used to watch this, and then the cargoes would come. But then when the war ended and obviously everybody left the base, and there's just these abandoned bases, right? Well, what they found, so there was somebody, I don't know how many years later, honestly, but you can look it up. But essentially, somebody came across these islanders a number of years later, and they're like, what are they doing? So essentially, what the islanders were doing was they were out mimicking the rituals, what they saw as rituals of waving down the cargo planes. They had like built the goggles with the timber twigs. They had made a plane out of straw, I think. So they were creating what they saw as all the elements of success, but they had totally misunderstood the causation. So they were kept just doing the things, right? Just doing the things. And this is where the visual of, guys, there's no plane going to drop out of the sky no matter how
Such
many
a good story.
times. Yeah, right. This cargo cult mentality, and you see it so often in organizations that people will just go, if I just keep doing this in this way, or I trust this AI tool, or I do this, and I just keep ticking the boxes, eventually a cargo plane's going to arrive, right? It's not, there's assumption made around the causation. So that's what, I think the visual, tangible, hard question framing tools of the more traditional ways of measuring and demonstrating the progress can be so beneficial to the digital world. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, there you go. Cargo cult mentality. Go and look it
Oh,
up.
that's
It's
so
it's
funny.
interesting.
Okay, I want to ask a few questions. I like to call this the rapid fire. So these are just like kind of some short questions and fill in the blank or short answer, and you can repeat the answer if you like. So, the most important job of a leader is to blank.
Is to build relationships.
Good one. Do you have a favorite go-to problem-solving tool or visual device?
Actually, you know what? It's very, very simple, but the five whys, I often get into that one. Yeah, yeah, I do look at that, when I'm trying to just sit down and understand something or work with a team. Yeah, it's one of those, it's so simple. And then also as well, there's different variations, but we have your matrix of like, impact, high effort, what's the big easy you're looking for? So just plotting out, okay, what can we do now that's going to have the most impact versus the high impact but will take a hell of a lot of resource and work. Yeah, so that matrix as well I use quite a bit in conversations.
Yeah, the effort impact type
Yeah,
matrix.
yeah. Sorry, there's I'm thinking of Eisenhower, I'm thinking of all the different versions of
Yeah,
it, but
yeah,
four quadrants. Let's plot.
yeah. I love a good 2x2 matrix for sure.
Ah, for sure, right? Can't go wrong with those.
Is there a book that you like to recommend that you refer to people and say, "Hey, start here with this topic"?
Oh God, I'm a strange person in that I read like probably not things specific to the topic. I look for like the human perspective on things.
Yeah,
So for me, a couple of books come to mind. So one is A More Beautiful Question by Warren Berger. And it's really amazing because it challenges you because, we have grown up in the world of when you walk into the room as a leader, you must know the answers to all the problems, right? You must be able to fix stuff. And of course, now you're in a very vulnerable situation because you're like, I don't actually know. Like I'm depending on 20-year-olds to help me understand what the hell I'm doing, essentially, right? So this is a beautiful book because it actually helps you go, no, your job is to help surface it, and but it looks at it through the lens of business and personal. It's a very good book, a very, very good book. There's another one that I really enjoy called The Three Laws of Performance. And I don't know, have you come across that one? It's a very good book.
I think so,
And it's
yeah.
all around the
Oh,
language, all of that.
yeah, that one.
Yes, yeah,
It
yeah.
is a
It's
good one.
such a good book, right? It's because it's a little bit mind bending, some of it, in that you're going, okay, the language and the future pacing and how it, yeah, how your language is so important in what you're creating for the future, right? And it
Yeah.
really hammers home. And what I love about that book is it gives, I mean, I think one of the stories they share about, they're in a mine in South Africa. And you're going, wow, this isn't fluffy stuff. This is people in very difficult situations and leadership and how they use language around that. That's another fabulous book. And I'm also a massive fan of like Patrick Lencioni, so the Five Dysfunctions of Team, all of those just really, really great. Yeah, and I guess I will get off the call now and I'll think of another $10. But yeah, I'm one of those people that I like to look at more how you approach what you're trying to do rather than, just jumping straight into using a tool.
I love the even just the title of that book, A More Beautiful Question.
Mm.
On that topic, one of my questions is, do you have a favorite question or
What
favorite
is true?
questions?
Yeah, I know. You just see my brain going. Do, do, do. One of the questions is, what is true for you here? So truth has a ring to it, right? And we've all been in rooms, I'm sure, where, there's amazing storytellers, but then they walk out of the room and everyone's like, what the hell was that? It sounded great, but who's responsible for actually doing anything with that? And the other scenario is where we wrap fluff around things because either we don't want to really see it for what it is. It's like, oh, this is going way off track and we're over budget and etc. It's about creating a safe space for us to go, what's actually true for us here in this moment in time? What are we really looking at? What's in front of us here that we can work with? And that's both on a personal and a professional level. Because, when you ask what's the truth, everything else drops away. You get back to simplicity. You get back to, okay, this is actually what we're working with, or this is the problem that we've got, or whatever it is. So that's probably one of the questions I do lean on quite a bit. The other one is, what does success look like? And really look like, and I don't want to hear about, like, great, love the fact that you're going to, break into new markets, or you're going to uplift capability by 24% or whatever. It's beautiful. Love that. But what does it look like? How will you know? What are you, thinking, feeling, doing, etc.? Stepping into that energy, if you will, because that's a whole different mindset you're leading from then, rather than numbers, just numbers, which are important numbers. Yeah, so those would probably be the two is, what's the truth, and what does success look like? Yeah.
I love it. Those are great answers. Those are such good questions for sure. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay, this is a finish the sentence. Continuous improvement is blank.
Well, continuous improvement is like, I'm a visual person, right? So it's, for me, it's a linchpin. It's a way of like wrapping your arms around everything that's important in the business to creating value for the customer. That's what continuous improvement is for me. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
I'm super curious. I want to come back to this AI topic for just a minute, just because everything is AI everywhere right now, and I feel like a lot of the world has this like AI innovation goal without really knowing what it means beyond that, right? It's like, go in this direction, do something with AI.
Yeah.
What
What? We don't
my
know. Just do
feeling is that
something.
that's like a good place to get started, but it's not sufficient. What advice might you give to leaders who have done something like that inside their organization? Like, how could they create a better environment set up for actually making progress with an AI innovation effort?
Well, I think coming at it from two ends. So in terms of, looking like, what are the problems we're trying to solve or the value we're trying to create? To be very clear on that. And then, is AI a way of doing this? Cool, let's go and find some AI tools. So, looking at that that approach. Within that, Keith, everything doesn't have to be done next month, right? It's like, okay, let's do a bit of a roadmap here. It's like, this is what we're going to explore. This is what we're going to now trial. This is like some blue sky stuff that's out there that we'll get to. But, these are what we're going to action, whether it's like, let's just explore and see what this tech can do for us. Here's actually some stuff we're going to pilot right now. And what do we want to, what problem we're trying to solve from that. And then here's like a bucket almost, if you could think of it as 3 buckets, here's the bucket of things that we're gonna investigate more. So it could be like I mean, of course, robotics and all those things, but like quantum computing, all of that sort of stuff that you're like, my brain can't even wrap its head around what they could potentially do for our organization. But that doesn't mean you don't think about it. You just put it in a space, and when the time is right, that's the time to pick it up and put it into the bucket of exploring. And then you go from the bucket of exploring into, right, let's try this and get a use case that we can apply it to. Too often leaders can get caught up in the shiny, let's bring in AI, we've got, and I'm not picking on Microsoft, but, like Copilot is everywhere, great. But then why? What do we want people to do with this? So, again, a lot of like 90% of organizations at the moment are reporting no ROI essentially on the AI investment. But I would think a lot of that is because people are still using it on an individual level. It's not really been rolled up into team, process, organization-wide stuff, in some cases, or it's org-wide enhancement, but it hasn't dropped back down into the individual level, so it's what are
Yeah.
the connection points there? I think, that's the thing. And the other thing as well, back to a comment I made earlier around adoption and utilization. So if you as a leader want AI to be truly part of, which it must be in some shape or form, absolutely in the next few years, but if you truly want that to be the case, that the adoption and utilization of the tools and the training, like genuine training, not like this is what AI is, this is what you should not do, like, don't upload the business's financial reports into ChatGPT, people, you do have to call out, to be fair, at times, but generic, like, help me understand within my role, how can this help? Because of course there's this fear of AI um, taking people's roles. And there's some research out there that's showing, I think something like 45% of employees admit to actively sabotaging Gen AI projects. So this is because they're like, whoa, if this comes in and does all of this, what am I going to be, what's my job going to be? So they sabotage. And like, that's, if you're investing a lot of money, 45% resistance it's not good, right?
That's very enlightening or very eye-opening, I guess I would say.
And what's yeah, sorry, just to finish that point, I see just, designing that training in a way that they can utilize that in real time, rather than it being a side piece. So that's very important. So adoption and utilization of the tools in a meaningful way, I would say, is what leaders should look to too.
Yeah, that's one interesting trend I've seen is I don't know what the broadly industry accepted term is. I call it the TikTokification of training. Like you got to be able to train somebody something in about 90 seconds.
Have you ever seen, I saw it again last night, and I don't know why it's coming up in my feed all the time, but Toy Story, the Toy Story where the little pig is like just going through, and there's often that meme of like, going through my forced HR training or whatever, and he's just literally clicking all the channels. It's very funny. Sorry, went off topic. But yeah, that forced training, and that's the challenge, is that you're just going, right, watch this video, click on this link, you've ticked the box, the LMS has done its thing,
Yeah.
and we haven't brought it to life for people. So there's a whole, and actually a very good book, sorry, just going back to it, is a book called The Expertise Economy. And it talks about, how you bring learning to life for people so they apply it. That's what we need to do. We need to make this real because we're living in this digital world. How can we're humans, we connect, we must connect with some purpose behind this. So bringing it to life for people. And it could be things like running an incubator or some kind of hackathon. Those are the things that people connect with because they realize they're not on their own on this journey. There's an interesting topic super quickly that has come up in conversations at an event I was speaking at recently, was AI shame, which I was blown away by. But people were like, yeah, we are so, AI shame was a thing. They're like, we're really feel like we should know more, and we're pretending we know more, but we don't know more. What do we do? And it's like, but that's on us as leaders, because we obviously haven't. We've just shoved everyone on the bus, right? And we haven't created that space for them to go, hey, how does this work for me? How can I do this? So yeah, that's on us as leaders to help mitigate that.
So I've got a question here. So a number of years ago, Jeff Bezos was quoted, was interviewed, and the question was something about how do you stay innovative, how do you stay ahead of the trends, and his response was basically we don't worry about trying to outguess what the next product is. He says we focus on the things that are never going to change, and for us it was faster delivery and lower prices. Like we're going to build a strategy around that which is not going to change. Touching this continuous improvement discipline, everybody is worried about their future and if their job is going to be there. I think that there's probably some ways that people working in continuous improvement can build their capabilities to be safe into the future. Do you have any advice or insights on what are the things that you think are not going to change in tech, in continuous improvement? What are some of those things?
I think actually the tools like the value stream mapping, those types of tools and ways of thinking are not going to change. It's back to tech is just a tool, as evolved as it gets, it's still just going to help us determine what is the value, how are we delivering that, how are we removing waste, of course, and all those elements too. So I think that mindset is not going to change. I do, however, think the language, and I could be shot for saying this, but I do think the language may need to change somewhat because I do see, especially for the Puritans, right, who come in and they're talking, and they show the Excel spreadsheets with all the color codes and all the stuff. And you can literally see people's eyes popping out of their heads. We need to be getting better, from a CI leadership perspective at storytelling. And that, so like when we talk about storytelling, so we drop all the detail is great, and what is that telling us, and where is it taking us, and how can we connect with the story of the person in front of us? That's probably because otherwise leaders, and I think one of the points I was trying to get to earlier on was like there is this misconception sometimes that CI is more of an operational tool. Still, it is not, right? It's a mindset. There's so much more to it, which is where the value stream mapping and think those kinds of approaches are very valuable. But I think the language and I've seen it, I think I saw some recently, like the 8 ways of lean in digital, and the language is somewhat evolved around that, but still the fundamental are the same and the principles are the same. But yeah, that's where I probably see some advancement there. In terms of the technology as well, like ultimately, again, it's about how do we use digital capabilities and data to best serve our customer, I guess give us the insights we require in order to run our business effectively, and also how can it ultimately help us do our jobs better? So you've seen this a lot, particularly in banks, where they are looking to little chat bots and, but like these, and agentic AI in particular, to take over roles of tellers. But what's happening is, tellers are not necessarily being made redundant. It's like, okay, well, how can we use these people for more strategic work? So we're shifting. If we were to look at the traditional organizational model, right, that we know is what, back from the 1800s? Let's go back to Henry Ford and some, right? And we look at that model hasn't really shifted. You still have your CEO at the top, and then you have the role of marketing and finance and sales and all this. In there will be a AI, some form of AI role will be mapped out on, like that will be an actual role within the business too. And there will be chatbots and robots and all those things underneath that. I do strongly believe that will be part of the org chart in the future. And then it's just what is the role of the technology in its own right, but in how it services the other parts of the business.
I love it. I love to hear you say value stream mapping too, because anybody that works closely with me knows I love to reply back to, let's say, complex ideas or presentations with, could you draw me a picture of that?
Yes, 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 yes. And it just grounds us, right? It takes us away from, he's like, here's the facts, draw me a picture. And and we are dealing with so many more wicked problems, where there's so many different potential outcomes. There's a lot of different agendas on the table. There's so many more factors we cannot control in our organization anymore because we're influenced by so much external. CI will play a role in helping us get that structure, or, having a way of articulating what we're ultimately trying to achieve and how we're going to do it, what we can control and what's external to within our control as well. Yeah. And the good old, yeah, drawing of pictures. I'm pretty, it's basic straw, what you call them, stick men for me, but it still gets the point across for sure. Yeah.
Boxes and arrows is all I need. Just
I've writing like a doctor's, so I do sometimes have to, take pictures and go, what the hell did I just write there? But yeah, it's no, it's so powerful. And again, it's like that canvas, just that visual. I think the visual tools of CI are what will actually carry CI, because it gives people a way of getting into the room, particularly now technology teams are so much more involved in every single point of the business. It gives a way of people talking to each other that they may not have been able to do before.
that's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a good facilitation skill.
Yeah.
Claire, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. It's been a very interesting conversation, and we've touched on a lot of different things. And I'm super happy that you were able to join us. If anybody wants to get in touch with you or connect with you outside of the show here, what are the best ways to get in touch with you or to find you? Would it be your website?
Yes, thank you, Keith. So probably, the best place will be to go to the website, which is techteamwhisperer.com. So that's probably the best place. And within that, actually, you can download, if you just look for TrueMap, you can actually download for free the TrueMap to have a look at it and see, that can help you prompt some questions with your teams. And of course, I'm always here as well. If you have questions or you need some help with that, I'm more than happy to support. And the other thing as well, if anybody on the good old LinkedIn, if you just look for Claire Quigley, well, it's Claire Phelan is my maiden name, which I've still got in there because just I don't know, it's still there. But Claire Quigley is, if you just look me up, you'll find me on LinkedIn, and I'd love to connect and have some great conversations with really interesting people. Yes.
That would be awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a real pleasure getting to know you and having a conversation with you today. And for our listeners, if anybody would like to ask a question in the comments or send something to me, you can find me on LinkedIn, Keith Norris. And this concludes this episode of KPI Fireside, a continuous improvement podcast. If you've enjoyed the episode today, be sure to add a like, a comment. You can follow us on all the socials, share the podcast with your friends or colleagues who are as passionate about continuous improvement as you are. You can find us wherever you get your podcast. Until next time, keep driving progress and sparking change.